Man, I got started back in the late '70s. Actually, you know, I played basketball in high school. So, and I was looking when I was coming out of high school. I wanted to. I wasn't sure exactly which direction I wanted to go in, but I ended up, knowing that I loved fashion. You know, my mother used to get the fashion magazines, the Essence and things of that nature, but I loved it. And so I decided to go to school for fashion design. And I ended up going to community college. And of course, you know, after going there, I kind of, found other directions to go in. I actually started working in retail. That was one of the first jobs I had. I'd actually met a gentleman, and he worked in retail, and I loved what he was doing. And he said, well, you know, retail business is probably what you want to go into. So I started in the retail business. I started working in retail. I started working in men's clothing. And of course, I moved from men's clothing. And I ended up in always during my lunch period. I would always go up in the mall, go up to one of the Macy's or Rich's stores, and go into the ladies' department, watching them do makeup. And I went up there because I like girls. Wasn't so much as that I like makeup, but I love being around beautiful women. And the biggest thing about that is, you know, I had a young lady that always saw me. You know, she would see me standing there at the counter, and I'd be looking and watching doing it. She asked me, you know how to do makeup? And I said, well, yes. Well, I said that because I saw that doing makeup was just like drawing. Of course, growing up as a child, I used to do a lot of drawing, a lot of illustrations, I used to draw a lot of the comics. And I started, you know, of course, she said, well, why don't you, fill out an application for a job? And I said, I may do that. So I went and filled out an application for Fast for Cosmetics. And after filling out the application, they hired me. And I loved it because one thing that I loved was looking good, dressing up, and standing there in front of a lot of beautiful women. and I loved it. And but the most important thing is I loved seeing women look their best. And I think that's where I really got it, because I got that from my mother. She had been one of those people that I grew up around, that she was a stickler for having good skin. She was someone that really understood, great clothing. She taught me a whole lot. And I think out of all my brothers and sisters, all the siblings, I'm the one that really, really loved it. Travel the Southeast region for Fast for Cosmetics, going to different small towns, Augusta, going to the different malls, and man, I loved it. I was like a rock star. I had, girls lined up, and a lot of guys, I think people looked at me funny, but guess what? Who could get closest to girls than I could? Doing that makeup, I was right up on them. But the most important thing is I loved seeing them look good, and I think that was one of the things that really, really sparked me. Well, the hair business was to me like the ending point, because see, after working retail, working in men's clothing, I went from that to dressing women. Of course, I modeled for some years. I moved to Europe, lived there for about a year and a half, and worked as a fashion model, and I loved it. I did some styling while I was in Europe, and after modeling, going through that whole industry and realizing that, it's hard to keep a job and be able to do that at the same time. And I thought, so what is it that you could do that will allow you to have the freedom, you're able to make the money, and be able to, again, like I said, work with people and help them in their beauty. I mean, work with women. I love that. That's one thing I love. So, and I thought about it. I said, and in fact, somebody else asked me, how have you ever thought about going into the hair industry? And that's when I made the decision to go into the hair industry. I ended up moving to Chicago. I wanted to go to one of the finest schools, and going to Pivot Point in Chicago. And I mean, it was a real struggle, but I ended up going there. I didn't complete the whole course in Chicago. I ended up, because times were tough, I ended up moving back to Atlanta. And I finished all my, I did all my theory in Chicago, and I did some other things, and came on back to Atlanta, and I finished. I actually valedictorian of the class. And I mean, it was exciting because at the same time while I was in school, I was also working in salons and working with some of the best people, So that's how I got started in the hair business. Reese Forrest was one of the people that I learned a lot from. And of course, in this industry, I actually started working at Tom Harris Hair Designs. I worked in that salon for some time. I was actually assisting him. I I can say I was Tom's right-hand man. I pretty much did everything. I mean, I did all the shampoos, a lot of blow drying, but I learned a lot in the industry. And there's another gentleman that actually I got a chance to work around, and he was, you know, very, very good. And but he was, you know, very, I would say, flamboyant in his style. But I got a chance to work around him. You know, not necessarily did I actually learn hair from him, but I got a chance to watch how, you know, how he handled himself. That was Scott Julian, who's probably in Hollywood right now doing his Hollywood thing. Then, of course, there's a guy, I cannot go without seeing this person. Her name is Rochelle Knight. Rochelle Knight, of course, she's a salon owner, been in the business for a while. She taught me the ins and outs of this business. I mean, when I look at someone who was well-rounded in the industry, you know, Rochelle Knight was one of the people that I really, really learned a lot from. I really did. I worked in some other salons, and of course, working around, you know, different environments, I kind of, you know, saw that I thought that doing hair was more about just doing hair. I think the environment actually makes a big difference as to whether a person can explore or be able to expound their beauty. Because I think the environment plays a major role. In a lot of different environments I worked in, I had to deal with a lot of different energies and all those different, you know, things that came in. You dealt not only with the people that you worked around, but their clients. And then, of course, you had to move. And so years ago, I actually opened my first salon. This is going back in 1993, I think. 1992. It was in 1992. I opened my first salon called Complete Style. And worked alone. And I enjoyed it. I had a great clientele. People enjoyed the one-on-one atmosphere. And I think me being able to personally work with them and be able to not just, you know, without having what we call interruptions from others inside the salon, and I loved it. And so, of course, after coming back into the industry, because I walked away from the industry, vowed I'd never touch another head again. You know, some people call that burnout mode. But I came back and opened up Complete One again, right in the East Point area. And I mean, after coming back into the industry, I worked in some other salons, and I actually worked in a particular place where I never thought I'd work in, and just the environment was just, it was horrible. Just the idea and attitude of what people work, not just, they were doing hair. And I really believe that I like doing people as opposed to doing hair.